quorum with 3, so I have 7:01. I'll call the meeting to order. The first up on the agenda is approval of minutes from August 22nd. Has everyone had a chance to look through?
Yeah.
And any suggested edits or changes, anything like that?
No, I only wish they showed the closing time of the meeting because I think Liz got us through in record time, but
All right.
they were great.
No pressure, Ben, no pressure.
Yeah, I think
but-
it's an early 7:40 according to my notes. Thank you.
Oh, wow. You hold the record, Liz. Wow. All right, if there are no changes, then we just need a motion to approve as written.
So moved?
And a second.
Second.
Thank you.
Zulik,
Yes.
Barrington,
Yes.
Smith.
Abstain. Okay, first up, an RDA 42 Wildwood Drive. In accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Southborough Wetlands Bylaw, the Southborough Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing on Thursday, September 12th, 2024 at 7:00 p.m. via a virtual Zoom meeting. The commission will consider a request for determination of applicability for a project located at 42 Wildwood Road, map 7, lot 77, for the applicants and owners, Robert DeLaurentis and Danielle Hansen. The project description is to replace an existing deck with a sunroom addition.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Kevin Keeler. I'm the chief designer for Brady Built Sunrooms, representing Rob and Danielle. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the board, for hearing us this evening. Appreciate it. So this past summer, Rob and Danielle approached us to put a sunroom addition on the backside of their house because they have a very rapidly growing family, let's say. And they need the space desperately. They have a second floor deck right now, and it is somewhat useless because they're up. The backyard is up kind of on the edge of a hill, and there's a lot of wind. And when there's not wind, because of the close proximity to the wetlands, there's a lot of mosquitoes. So they don't really use it that much. So they wanted to replace it with something that they could use. The deck is 10 by 23/7. So we custom made the room to the exact same size as the deck, so we wouldn't expand on the footprint. Unfortunately, the deck is in rough shape. Supports are not good enough to support the weight of an addition or anything along those lines. So what we're going to do, the plan is to remove the deck, put in some new helix screws, 4 of them, and then new posts and a new beam, and then install the sunroom on top of that to replace the deck. We're using helix screws in this particular situation, and we always do in a sensitive conservation area because conservation boards love them. They only disturb 10 cups of soil per hole. So there's very little disturbance of the area at all. Because our rooms are built at the factory under controlled circumstances and then delivered with a crane and we'd be lifted up over the roof of the house and set in place, there's going to be no heavy machinery in the backyard or any heavy equipment of any kind at all. There's roughly 50 feet of established lawn between the edge of the sunroom and the fence that they have. And before it starts to head into the wetlands, there's still some unestablished area that's not wetlands on the other side of the fence, but there's 50 feet of established lawn before you even get to the fence. We will put erosion controls in place along the edge of the yard during the process. And we feel that we can do this without any disruption of any kind to the wetlands area. So we respectfully request that the board grant us permission to proceed forward with the project.
Okay, thank you. Just one quick question. So the erosion control barrier, you're talking about staked straw wattles, is that the?
Correct.
Perfect. Questions, comments, concerns from the commission? Okay, and Jill, you did not do a review of this, correct?
Did not review this one, no.
No. Okay. Didn't think you would have.
Somebody walked the property.
Pardon?
Yeah, I did. That was me. Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So, yeah, with the helical piles and no equipment at all really going into the backyard, it sounds like a perfect case for an RDA. Would somebody like to make a motion to issue a negative determination of applicability, conditioned upon the installation of a staked straw wattle erosion control barrier between the work and the adjacent wetland area?
So moved.
And a second?
Kevin.
Second.
Thanks.
Like, Kevin, you're only left. Zulik,
Yes.
Barrington. Barrington, sorry. Oh, I can't hear you again.
Sorry, my sound cut out. Second, if that works.
Or
Or
yes.
just, yes, say yes.
Oh, okay. Now I can hear you. Sorry. Everything went black. So,
So Farrington,
yes.
Yes.
okay, we're good now. So
Great.
I will get you your decision probably tomorrow morning, and you will be good to go. So if you guys haven't already, you're free to submit your building permit,
Okay.
and start that rolling.
Thank you very much. I greatly appreciate it. Have a good evening.
You too.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Okay, let's see, I've got 7:07 here, we gotta wait until 7:10.
I think Ben, for Dairy Farm, the COC should be very quick. We were just waiting for some yard waste debris removal, and that has since been done. And I went out and did an inspection to confirm.
Okay. Questions, comments? And if there are none, would somebody like to make a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for 4 Dairy Farm Lane?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Zulik,
Yes.
Barrington.
Yes.
Oh, Ben, I didn't hear you. Sorry.
Oh, yes.
Sorry,
Oh.
Ben, I didn't hear you.
Okay, yeah, I'm a yes.
We're doing great tonight.
Okay.
And I could do it twice.
Don't have quite enough time to go into the CPC spiel, but perhaps after the next item.
I do have a quick question. If people are available on Monday, September 23rd for the Chestnut Hill Farm management discussion. That seemed to be at least the days that the trustees were available.
What time?
Either 6 or 7.
We can do either.
I could do 7.
Okay.
Like 7:15 would be really ideal for me, but I can make 7.
Okay. All right. I will post the agenda and let the trustees in open space know that date then.
Will that be on site?
We can do it on Zoom if that's the preferred. I think it's
Oh.
probably easiest for everyone.
Okay,
Yeah.
so maybe I thought we were doing like a walk around Chestnut Hill during that time. Okay, but it will still be 7 o'clock.
Yep, on
Yeah.
Zoom.
Perfect. Thank you. Or 7:15-ish maybe.
Yeah.
7:07.
That brings us to 7:10. Next item is an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation, for 66 Oak Hill Road. In accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Southborough Wetlands Bylaw, the Southborough Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing on Thursday, September 12th, 2024 at 7:10 p.m. via a virtual Zoom meeting. The commission will consider an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation for a project located at 66 Oak Hill Road, map 31, lot 33, for the applicant and owner, Jad Shaheen. Project description is confirmation of resource area boundaries. Sheng, welcome.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Thank you for all your service for my announcement. Haven't been to the board for a while. So this is a relatively simple. Originally, I tried to just file an RDA, but it turned out that we couldn't use RDA to determine the resource boundary, so just under the local policy. So we did file, so there we file this NRAD. So it's for a sprint off new lot of 66 Oak Hill Road. And it's pretty much wooded, and some of them are maintained. The lawn is kind of it's probably for a long time just near the town water tower. So it means it's pretty high, but the soils there is pretty tight soils. So it's on kind of top of hill, but it is tight soils. We like to do the soil testing, so let's see if we can get it going. So I understand town consultant Lucas Environmental has set up the time for next Tuesday to walk the line with me. Joe or Chris going there? Or?
Yeah, it won't be me. I'm not sure if it's going to be Chris or Tom Liddy. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, so I don't have much to show. If I can share the screens, just have to get the members an idea. Let me see if I can bring up my plan. Just get some idea. You can see the screen.
Yep.
So it's actually in the back. It doesn't see the Oak Hill Road. This is the new. Oops, this is the new lot. So this actually it's not abandoned. It's like almost like a private town-owned land going to the town water towers here. So it's just some kind of public way, but it's just serving for two houses in the back and on the side. So the existing house is in this area. So it's like a broad valley. So there's some old crops here. It's a lawn here. Actually, the lawn is probably even went to a little bit beyond the wetland line, so maintained. So, but you can see some patterns of drainage. So with fracking, the wetlands turned out pretty much follow the contours 305, but there definitely is some kind of flow paths inside of it, and then definitely beyond the stone wall, you can see there's a stone wall. Just below the stone wall, it's very clear. It's a wetlands. That's usually in the old days, people will put the stone wall line up with the wetlands, but this have some drainage patterns. So in this area, but at the same time, they still kind of long looking. So so we will go over, and the testing will be outside of a 100-foot buffer, so that's why it's important to finalize the lines. So we set up general testing area, so 100 feet away from the wetlands we surveyed. So if Tuesday get confirmed, Wednesday is the 18th is the day scheduled with the Board of Health, and Dennis will witness the soil testing. So yeah, given we do have the peer reviewers' comments, I think it just gets you familiar with what looked like it's wooded, and then patches of lawns and the flowering, wider flowers scattered all around the area. So
thank you. So it sounds like we're waiting on Lucas Environmental to go out and walk the line with you and address what sounds like the DEP raised just a question that just needs to be looked at. And once we get an answer to that, we will be able to go forward with the ANRAD. So I think we are looking at a continuance until October 3rd, our next scheduled meeting when we can do that. I think everything should be in hand then to get you your approval, Desheng.
Okay, thank you so much.
Unless anyone has a question for Desheng, we'll be pardon me. If there's anybody from the public here this evening who wishes to ask a question or make a comment on the project, please use the raise hand function on Zoom and we'll promote you up. Okay. So with that, we're just looking for a motion to continue to our next public meeting.
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Zulik,
Thank you all.
Yes.
We'll see.
Barrington?
Yes.
Smith.
Yes. Okay. So thank you very much for joining us this evening. And you'll be meeting with Lucas next week, and we'll see you on the 3rd.
Thank you. We'll see you then.
Okay. Have a good night. Okay. And I'll steal the next 3 minutes to talk about CPC. As you know, I'm the Commission's representative, Community Preservation Committee. I'm the chair of the committee now. And this I think the best way to describe it. The bylaw that created the Community Preservation Committee, I think at first reading seems fairly clear about how the committee gets put together. It says the select board shall appoint members as follows, and then it lists first one, it says one member of the Conservation Commission as designated by the commission, and then it goes through 7 other boards, committees, and commissions in town. The select board has interpreted that to mean that word shall appoint, that phrase, that they have the authority to either appoint or to not appoint one of these designees from one of the town bodies. So what's happened twice now, we had Shopsy appoint Dorianne Jasinski, a woman who's been a passionate volunteer for the town for 30 years. And the select board refused to appoint her. And then most recently, Kristen Laval was designated by the Recreation Committee to continue she was currently a member of Community Preservation. Her term expired, came up again. She was still the Recreation designee. And again, the select board declined to appoint her to Community Preservation. A couple of things about that were surprising to the members of the committee and caused us a little bit of concern. I think, first and foremost, these are 2 very passionate volunteers who I'm sure you recall from town meetings, have done an awful lot of good for the town, and who Dorianne had previously served on Community Preservation some years ago when Kristen had been a current member. They're both valued members, and we are really looking forward to continuing to work with them. We also have trouble achieving a quorum at times because of we can't fill the entire membership. We have this headwind. We felt the treatment of these 2 women, we also, I think, to a member, the committee felt was pretty unfair. They're subject to some pretty aggressive questioning by the select board, and then were, of course, not appointed. Community Preservation went out and gathered signatures to get a citizens petition warrant article before special town meeting on September 30th. We've gotten the petition certified by town clerk. He's verified the signatures, and the petition is to change the town's bylaw that creates the Community Preservation Committee, to change the wording. This is actually really interesting, to just reflect the exact language of the Community Preservation Act. The act itself says that the committee shall be composed of the following, and then it lists 1 member of Conservation Commission as designated. It takes out that piece, shall be appointed by the select board entirely. It just says the committee is composed as follows. So we propose to mirror that exact language. Interestingly, of the 198 communities in the Commonwealth that are community preservation committees, 90% of them do it exactly the way I'm describing here, where the contributing bodies designate their own members, appoint their own members to be on community preservation. I'll wrap it up really quickly. I'm just about done. This is a really critical part of this is that the Community Preservation Act is predicated upon an independent community preservation committee that helps to administer this small sliver of a town's budget. In our case, it averages right around $400,000 per year to fund the projects that make our community special. These are projects, historical preservation, open space, affordable housing, and recreation projects. The projects that during a typical budgeting process just sort of get elbowed off the table after the select board funds education, public safety, public works, the administration of town government, and all the other necessities of Southborough's municipal needs. These projects, though they make our town a really special place, things like Chestnut Hill Farm, the All Wars Memorial, the townhouse preservation, the library facade preservation, all these fantastic projects. Without CPA, they wouldn't get funded. And our independence is a critical part of that. A perennial issue that comes up with community preservation committees across the Commonwealth is select boards and city councils trying to directly or indirectly control CPA funds and use them to plug holes in a town's budget rather than use them for their intended purpose, these special projects. So that's the warrant article that we put forward. And I wanted to share it all with you in hopes that you will support this at town meeting in a couple of weeks on Monday, the 30th of September. And if anyone has any questions at all about that, I'd love to answer them for you.
Can I just ask one quick question? Is there I mean, I've heard about this in various forums around town. What was the reason given by the select board for not doing the appointments?
In the case of Dorianne, the select board said that they felt that she was ineffective in her work with affordable housing on Shopsy, something which, just as a personal aside, I think was fundamentally untrue and unfair. In the case of Kristen, Kristen is a passionate and vocal volunteer here in town, and activist here in town, and she had leveled some pointed criticisms towards the select board about issues like the South Union School at 21 Highland and the availability or potential availability of the Johnson family land over on Northborough Road. And she was critical of the handling of these matters. It sounds like the select board felt that they didn't like the tone that she used in offering the criticism. I was there sitting next to Kristen as she was questioned pretty aggressively, and wasn't given much of an opportunity to defend herself. I will say, as a volunteer here in town, I'm really concerned what this kind of grilling of volunteers is going to do to volunteerism here in town. I think our own brief member, Sherry, typically conservation members are approved. Sherry had been a member before, glowing recommendations from the committee. And I think because she had been outspoken about the connection to Hopkinton to our reservoir, she was subject to some pretty intense questioning also. So
I love that she was able to get Article 97 into her answers though and educate the select board a little bit. That was wonderful.
Yeah. So it's something that's been going on with the select board, and it's I've spoken with a couple of select board members. I guess in a way I understand where they're coming from. I don't agree with it. I don't think it's healthy for a community to try to stifle the voices of the people with whom we disagree. I think there's a broad diversity of opinion here in town, and it's vitally important that all of these voices are heard. So we can only address on CPC, through this article, the CPC itself. I think it's a good first step.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. And I will be there and voting in favor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Liz.
Have you done the, I know I've done a citizen petition before, and have you done the road trip through all the boards, like advisory and select board and?
We've not gone to advisory yet. Select board has voted not to support, which isn't super surprising. Advisory, I don't know how that will go. This is part of that circuit. So because we are each contributed by a town body, we're each going back to our, or at least 7 of the 9, we're going back to our designating bodies, and each, reaching out individually. So this is part of that this evening.
Okay, well, I'd support this as well. I thought it was unfortunate what happened, and I think if we can align ourselves with the state law, that's so much better. Yeah.
Thank you, Kevin. Thanks. All right. So with that, move along to the next agenda item. Notice of intent at 116 Main Street. In accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Southborough Wetlands Bylaw, the Southborough Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing on Thursday, September 12, 2024 at 7:20 p.m. via a virtual Zoom meeting. The commission will consider a notice of intent for a project located at 116 Main Street, map 52, lot 4, for the applicant and owner, Elizabeth Crowley. The project description is the construction of a garage addition and the installation of a Title V compliant septic system. Good evening, Mr. Hazen.
Good evening. Thank you for hearing us tonight. As you mentioned, I'm Dan Hazen. I'm here on behalf of LBAG Engineering, representing Elizabeth Crowley for 116 Main Street. If I could share my screen, this will make things a little easier.
Yeah, you should have permissions. If not, let me know.
Yeah. Can you see this?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. So what we are proposing tonight is the construction of a new garage. The existing property is about 3.7 acres. Currently, this is the footprint of the existing house. It does have some history with it. I guess at one point it was a former hotel years and years ago, back when the aqueduct was built. The aqueduct runs along the southerly border of the property down here, has some flood zone associated with that. So, as I mentioned, the proposals for construction of a garage, construction of a new Title V septic system to replace the existing cesspool that exists in this area, in the old septic tank that's in this area. There is an existing patio that they would like to expand between the existing house and the proposed garage. And then there's a proposed area of expanding the existing kitchen out about 12 feet in this area. The existing site is currently all lawn or landscaped down to the property line. And I believe that, I'm not sure who, but this area down here is also mowed. It's not part of the applicant's property. There's an existing pool on the site. This is the same plan that you have before you. I just made the riverfront and the buffer zone lines a little bit darker so that they're easier to read. There's also expansion of the existing driveway right in this area to access the proposed garage. There's no work proposed within the flood zone, within the inner riparian zone, and there are no endangered species on the site. As far as looking at alternatives for the property for this garage, there's only about 20 feet on the westerly side to the setback line to be able to install any structures. Also, it doesn't work with the layout of the existing house, whereas this is the kitchen. Makes more sense. This is more residential area down at this end. So in the other alternative would have been a no build, but that doesn't align with the applicant's desires to have a garage. Currently, there is no garage on the property, so this would be construction of a two-car garage. It's about 30 by 36 feet. We do have erosion controls proposed along the property. It would be 10-inch straw wattles. We do have a stockpile area outside of the riverfront area for any topsoil or imported material that might need to be brought in. So, any questions?
Thank you very much. First, Melissa, could you bring us up to date on the current state of the technical review by our consultants?
So it has been sent to Lucas, and I believe, Joe, you have not completed the review yet. We did receive a letter from DCR. You know, they were generally fine with the project. They did request if there was any ability to infiltrate any of the new roof surfaces. That's always preferred. And then they had a comment about an old decrepit dock that's behind the property within the channel, and if there's an opportunity to remove that under this notice of intent. I think they're concerned about it possibly finally giving way, and then being kind of carried down and causing a blockage or a detriment to the aqueduct at some time. But that is kind of where we are. And I don't know, Joe, if you've had a chance to look at anything or if you're still on the docket for next meeting.
Yeah, through the chair, we haven't had a chance to take a look at this one yet. So we'll be reviewing this for the next meeting.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Unfortunately, I've been unable to access this through the SharePoint. That link for some reason comes up with a 404 error, which has never happened to me before in the SharePoint. So Mr. Hazen, this question may well have been answered within your submittal, but you've gone through the math under the Rivers Protection Act to determine that you're under the 10%. Has that been done?
Yes, it has.
Oh, okay. Okay, and that's something that Jill, of course, you'll be taking a look at that in your review. Okay. Questions, comments, concerns from commission?
So I guess I had one question about, will the garage actually be connected to the house? There are those curved lines near the patio.
There will not be an actual connection. There will be I believe, a roof over this area, kind of like a portico. But there won't be a structure between. They'll just be replacing this existing patio. It'll be expanded slightly in this footprint. This gray footprint will be the expansion of the existing patio between the garage. So
yeah, I was wondering why we couldn't like rotate the garage out of the riparian zone completely, but if that's going to be a roof connecting it, that makes sense to me. So thanks.
Okay, thank you. Before I forget, if there's anyone here this evening from the public who wishes to ask a question or make a comment regarding this project, please use the raise hand function on Zoom and we will promote you up so you can do that. Okay, I'm not seeing anyone. So it looks like we're going to have to do a continuance until our next public meeting so that we can get a review from Lucas Environmental.
good. And there was discussion as far as the that dock that the owner, they're fine with removing that. So
oh, great. Thank you.
They're willing to work with the commission on just looking to get this approved.
Okay. Okay. So with that, would somebody like to make a motion to continue to our October 3rd meeting?
Moved.
And a second?
Second.
Zulik,
Yes.
Barrington,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes. Okay, well, thank you very much, and
Okay, thank you.
we'll see you in 3 weeks.
Okay, great. Take care.
You too, have a good day.
Bye.
$7:36. Okay. Next up, another notice of intent, Central Street right-of-way. In accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Southborough Wetlands Bylaw. The Southborough Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing on Thursday, September 12, 2024 at 7:30 p.m. via a virtual Zoom meeting. The commission will consider a notice of intent for a project located within Central Street right-of-way for the applicant William Cundiff for the town of Southborough. The project description is to rebuild the retaining wall supporting Central Street and improvements to the road drainage system. Good evening, Mr. Callahan, Mr. Russell.
Good evening. Thanks for hearing us. My name is Kip Callahan. I'm from VHB and we're representing the town of Southborough. If I could get screen sharing, then I can go through the plans.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Okay. All right. And so this project is located on Central Street near the intersection of Boston Road. And the project is to repair the damaged footing of the retaining wall that supports the road here and replace the existing 4 catch basins, one of which was badly damaged, with 4 new catch basins, 2 manholes, and 12-inch reinforced concrete pipe that connects the drainage system. The drainage system was damaged as when this wall was undermined from water that was leaking out through the system. And then the riprap bank here was also damaged. And so the proposal is to restore the footing of this wall and to return this riprap slope to its previous condition. The wetlands were delineated by VHB on March 22nd. And so the Sudbury Reservoir here is down here to the west. And there's a sort of a fringe wetland up here on the eastern side. There is no proposed wetland impacts, but a big portion of the project, approximately 4,386 square feet, is located within bordering land subject to flooding. All the impacts will be temporary, and there's no anticipated change to the compensatory flood storage because the system will be restored to pre-damage conditions. The work is also primarily taking place in buffer zone. And so it's a little bit hard to see, but on this, the outline of the work is this kind of green box here. And then this does also fall within the 20-foot no disturb zone. So 1,649 square feet of temporary impact will also occur within that 20-foot no disturb zone. We have requested a waiver for that. And this is a limited project under 310 CMR 10.247C1 because it's maintenance and improvement of an existing public roadway that's limited to widening of less than single lane, adding shoulders, correcting intersections, and improving drainage systems. And we request that the waiver be granted because this project is in the public interest.
Okay, thank you very much. Melissa, have we had any luck on getting a DEP number?
Nope, I didn't get, I don't know, Kip, if you tried. I tried today and I didn't get anything.
Yeah, we asked and unfortunately we didn't hear anything back.
Okay, it sounds like, you know, everything is all set. We're ready to act here. I don't know. Yeah, we typically vote separately on the waiver, but I don't think it makes sense to do that in the absence of the being able to actually close the hearing and issue the order. We'll do that at that time. But I think we're forced to wait until our next meeting when we have the number, unfortunately.
Yep.
Any questions, comments, concerns from the commission?
I guess I had a question about the catch basins. Are those going to result in any increased flow or anything into the wetland? I guess
No,
I
so
didn't really deep.
yeah, there's no anticipated changes to the stormwater. The catch basins will tie into the existing discharge, which is up here. So basically, the same volume is going to go into those catch basins and be discharged in the same place that it was previously.
Okay. And the only other question I had is there was in the narrative it talked about land under water, and I didn't find that on the
Oh,
plans.
yeah, I think that
something
must have been an error.
Okay, good.
Okay. Oh, excuse me. If there's anybody here this evening from the public who wishes to make a comment or ask a question regarding this project, please use the raise hand function and we'll promote you up. Does not look like anyone does. Yeah, so with that, unfortunately, we're going to have to continue until our next meeting, but I think it will be a pretty short matter then to simply close the public hearing and issue the order and approve the waiver.
Great.
So, is
Ben,
there a
just-
motion? Oh, sorry.
Just quickly, I know Joe did have one just comment about the stamp. I don't know if that was something that we wanted to talk about or
I noticed that too. I thought it was just because of a digital copy. I was hoping you had a paper copy stamped in the office.
not yet. So sometimes I know I often get one, but Kip, I don't know if you can answer that.
So, was it in reference to the updated plan? Yeah, so we can provide that. It was just on, because of the short notice of getting those comments back. We wanted to provide this updated plan that showed the wetland flag so that it was available for review here. But we can provide an updated copy that's been stamped.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so with that, looking for a motion to continue to our next meeting on October 3rd.
Moved.
And a second?
Second.
Zulik,
Yes.
Barrington,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, so we'll see you in 3 weeks. Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Let's see. Okay, next, another notice of intent, 27 Pine Hill Road. In accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Southborough Wetlands Bylaw, the Southborough Conservation Commission will conduct a continued public hearing on Thursday, September 12, 2024 at 7:40 p.m. via a virtual Zoom meeting. The commission will consider a notice of intent for a project located at 27 Pine Hill Road, map 79, lot 21, for the applicant and owner Shannon and Timothy Butler. The project description is the construction of an in-ground pool, patio, and pavilion. Good evening, Mr. Balsowitz.
Yes, correct. Stephen Balstich here on behalf of Land Planning Inc., representing the owner and applicant Tim and Shannon Butler. Since the last time we met, there was a review by Lucas Environmental. We've provided the board with a comment letter outlining the address of that review. If I could share my screen, I could just go through the alterations to the plan. All right, can you all see this?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so the first comment in the review letter referenced wetland flag A9. Because of the thickness and difficulty to reach A9, the location has been amended per the comment up gradient from its previous plan location, the 4 feet, and all resource area buffers from that were updated in addition to the riverfront area calculations. The second comment was regarding an alternative analysis. One has been issued to the commission. I don't know if anybody got a chance to review that, but to quickly go through the alternatives, the backyard or easterly portion is entirely within the 200. So any location in the, limits within the existing lawn behind the dwelling would result in the same resource area impact. Also, as shown on the plan, alternative 2 would be front yard. Outside of a practicality standpoint, there are septic system setbacks that would need to be complied with and would render it not a feasible alternative. The other option, which wasn't outlined in the alternative analysis, was the no build, which would not conform to the permit proposal before this commission. If I could go to the second sheet, this is the proposed site plan. As stated, the buffers were updated on this. Additionally, the riverfront area report was updated. There were several comments in the technical review that wanted further clarification into the breakdown and how the areas were documented. They were updated to basically show the existing riverfront area, and we broke that into natural vegetative area, basically the woods, existing wood line, the existing degraded area, and then the limits of the lawn area. Additionally, further detail was provided for the proposed riverfront changes. Those 3 classifications still remain within the riverfront. And then the alteration summary and the proposed renaturalization is what we called it. As previously discussed, we were going to be allowing this to renaturalize. In addition, we were going to be providing some plantings that have not changed since our last meeting within this area. We broke those off into on-site and off-site renaturalization. On sheet 3, you can see greater detail into the renaturalization and replanting area, in addition to other areas regarding the runoff management from the patio. Another review, technical review comment was a general construction sequence. We have provided on sheet 3 a general overview of the construction sequencing for the property. I would also like to note, because it's once I've stopped sharing the screen, one of the comments was in regards to a maintenance area stockpile that was located within this area. We were going to be requesting that a condition of approval be written, that the area will be decommissioned more or less and relocated on our property outside of the 100-foot riparian as necessary. I will stop sharing my screen, and I can address any comments at this time.
Great, thank you very much. Melissa, as I understand it, the response to Lucas Environmental's comments came in earlier this week on Monday.
Correct.
Okay, and Joe, Lucas has not had a time to go through that. Has not had time to do that yet.
That is correct. We haven't had a chance to go through the revisions.
Okay.
We also do not have a DEP number still.
Oh.
Steven, I'm assuming it's maybe because of that supplemental fee that's probably needed. That might be why they're holding it too, if there's a DEP portion that's still needed. I didn't see anything on the NOI lookup that specified that, but that might be one reason why, just as an FYI.
Yeah, I believe I sent a balance statement for the town portion of the missing fees. It was at that time that was balance was released to the state. So I believe they should have received that by now. Okay. Additionally, if I may, there was one technical comment that was in regards to the invasive species maintenance and operation. We have located a Mass Audubon document that describes in particular the 3 invasives on site and their management techniques. Would the commission be all right with us submitting that document in lieu of producing a full operation and maintenance that would basically outline the exact same thing?
I think specifically to address the removal of invasives, if it provides a description of the measures that will actually be taken, or I've never having seen the document. I don't know if it gives a range of methods or a specific list of steps, but if it has the specificity needed to describe the tasks that will be undertaken, I think at least for the portion of the O&M plan addressing invasives management, it sounds like that would be appropriate.
Yeah, so it basically for all three present invasives on site, it goes through two techniques really per the three invasives. The principal one is basically removal and maintenance, cutting, and it gives kind of a schedule on when it should be done. And then the secondary is kind of a chemical herbicide technique, which probably be a second route. And that would only be if they were going to be taking care of like the whole invasive area and not just, I want to say, creep of the invasives into this area. So as of right now, the document basically outlines just the mechanical techniques that they should use in this area if it should advance into it.
Okay. Yeah, as long as there can be some specificity which steps you're actually going to take. And as far as the application of herbicides, there's that can cover a lot of ground, between cut and paint at one end and then hosing the whole thing down with glyphosate at the other end. I think we'd need a little bit of detail on if you're going the herbicide route, how that would be conducted. But I should open this up to the rest of the commission for your thoughts on this.
I think you captured mine. So, which is, if you're going to use herbicides, we're going to want more detail on that. So,
okay.
So I think at this time, the intent really is not going to be the herbicide route. It's just in this overview in this document, it lists it as a potential. The more mechanical means would be what we were looking to do. Basically just cutting and pulling as needed, like it describes in the document. Like I said, if they wanted to go further into detail as far as really eradicating anything that just creeps in, that would probably lean more to the chemical side of it, but that isn't their intent at this time.
Then it sounds like, submitting this document itself, it may be accompanied by a simple paragraph or something indicating which route you're going to be taking. So that it sounds to me like that would address it. And Joe, of course, you'll be taking a look at that when it comes across your desk. Okay. Any other questions, comments, concerns from the commission? Okay, and if there's anyone here from the public this evening who has a question or wants to make a comment on this project, I see a hand has already gone up. Melissa, could you promote up Brian?
They should be able to unmute and speak.
And Brian, could you just introduce yourself, first name, last name, and your address here in town?
Sure. My name is Brian Kelly. I live at 3 Angelica Lane. I've lived there for 23 years. So we're talking about the abutment and the land behind your client's property regarding the pool.
Yeah. Yes.
So when I first moved in 23 years ago, I was unable to see that house. And now I can. So in the last 5 to 7 years, actually, trees and other debris have been removed from the backyard or that area of that property. So I do not recommend anything being completed or done on that property line without our approval.
Okay, thank
So
you.
if you get,
Go ahead.
so I can go a lot further. So, um, I mean, there's a lot of different things to discuss. I'd rather be represented by Dave McKay, our attorney actually from Myrick. But what we want to talk about, we have no problem with the pool going in and so forth, but the removal of the screening has been going on for years, whether it's your client that just moved in or the people that are prior, but it just keeps going on. So, I mean, we have a lot of land there. We have no problem with you guys installing a pool and cabana and so forth, but we do not appreciate at the last 5 to 7 years that area being cleared by others. So that is my point. I can be reached by phone, email, or other ways. So if you'd like to chat about that, I am more than willing to do that.
One thing I may, if I could, I don't know to what extent anything has been removed or not, but after walking the site, I did recognize a lot of the screening and invasives have creeped up various trees, and they've created kind of a knot. And I don't know if possibly they were able to choke out the existing native vegetation and therefore kind of causing a thinning of that. That is a possibility.
Yes, it is a possibility.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. I agree with you. I mean, the easy thing to do is, when things die down, to just walk through and see if there's any cut locations.
Yep.
Stumps and so forth in the backyard, or any other debris of trees and so forth that have just inadvertently fallen over the years. But I can definitely meet with you guys and talk with you about that perimeter if you'd like.
Sure. I will relay that to the owner and applicant of this proposal.
Okay.
So, sure, Stephen, you can reach out to me directly, and then we can move forward, and we can also go through the committee. And I'm more than willing to Melissa to come down to your office. I'm locally in the area. I've had a business in this area since '86. So I am all around, and I can definitely come down and chat with you guys and talk about this issue.
Yeah, Brian, if you want to send me an email with your contact info, that way I can send it over to the engineer. That might be the easiest way if you're willing.
Yes, and I mean, one thing, Stephen, just to check, you can check the satellite imaging that's been going on, over the last 2 to 7 years. We did land development over in Grafton ourselves, and we were just going through certain things. So that's one thing. If you want to just check, and the board can check that as well, you'll be able to see the transition of that land behind that property over the last course of the 23 years. Just by stamped, dated satellite imaging. So you can see that. I'm sorry, I'm out of my truck. I'm not sure if I'm clear, but I'm out on the road right now, so hopefully you guys can hear me.
Loud and clear.
All right, fantastic.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Kelly. It sounds like we have a plan going forward. The Mr. Balcevic, excuse me, will be reaching out to the property owner, and so that they may contact you and try to get a handle on what clearing has taken place, and also maybe the efficacy of removing these invasives to encourage additional growth. I think that's something the commission would love to see. But,
fantastic.
And Brian, I would also, if I may, through the chair, we had on our proposal, I don't know if you saw the plans, one of the items we put on sheet 2 was that we would approach you prior to doing any maintenance and stuff. So that was always the intent, was to inform you, and it was on the plan sets from the very beginning, and that was the understanding, just so you know we weren't. Yes.
Yeah, it just would have been smart, honestly. I've lived here for 23 years. I'm the original owner, to just call me. I'm accessible through a lot of different phone numbers. I have a large business in the town, so I'm pretty accessible. I have quite a staff that can reach me pretty easily. No one's reached out to me. I got a legal letter sent to me. This is how I found out about it. So it's better to just reach out to people. When we were developing a lot of land over in Grafton, we reached out to personally all the people that were affected by the homes we were building, the streets we were building, and all of the other issues that were at hand. So it's unfortunate we're having a recorded conversation. There was no really need for that. We can definitely work something out, but we do have to have a plan with that area for the future.
Absolutely. Okay.
Fantastic. So as far as tonight goes, in the absence of a DEP number, and also not having the review from our consultant, we will be unable to act tonight. So we're going to have to be looking for a continuance to October 3rd, our next scheduled public meeting. At which point we'd love to hear how the conversation has gone with Mr. Kelly also.
Yes.
So no other questions from the commission nor the public. Then we are looking for a motion to continue to our October 3rd public meeting.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Zulik,
Yes.
Barrington,
Yes.
Jeff.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, well, thank you very much for joining us this evening, and we'll see you in 3 weeks.
Perfect. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Have a good night. Okay. Next up, an ANRAD for 25 Park Street. In accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Southborough Wetlands Bylaw, the Southborough Conservation Commission will conduct a continued public hearing on Thursday, September 12, 2024 at 7:50 p.m. via a virtual Zoom meeting. The commission will consider an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation for a project located at 25 Park Street, map 55, lot 93, for the applicant Storlazzi, Morrow, Schneer, Morrow, Bannon, Puccio, and Morrow. The project description is confirmation of resource area boundaries. Good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Melissa, can you bring us up to date on the review status?
Sure. So Heather has sent over the revised plan after her and Joe went out again to revisit the wetland line. They let some vegetation grow back because it had been cut short as it's maintained lawn. So the plan has been provided. I think Joe took a look over it this afternoon before the meeting and had some, I think some comments regarding the wetland flag numbering. And, you know, Joe, I'll let you take your spiel from there.
Yes, please, Joe, if you would.
Sure. So I did have a chance to look over the revised information. As Melissa mentioned, Heather and I met in the field and we came to agreement on the delineation in the field. There were some changes, nothing real significant. I think a finger of wetland extended in one area, and I think we pulled it back a little bit in another area. I did recommend that the submitted plan or figure for the delineation include the flag numbers. I think there's elevations on it currently. The flag numbers would certainly be helpful. Also, I recommended that Heather just maybe talk about the level of accuracy of the flag locations obtained with the GPS unit. I know typically we have an ANRAD is done by survey, so I just wanted to double check on the accuracy of that. And also the Conservation Commission should discuss whether or not that accuracy is sufficient or whether or not a survey plan would be required. And I guess if the GPS coordinates are sufficient, then those should be also submitted to the commission for the record. And I think at this point that was the limit of my comments.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Yeah, so yeah, regarding the GPS location of the flags, you know, this is certainly something that is done occasionally, but it depends very much on what type of receiver is used to establish the locations. So I'm curious as well.
Yeah, sure, sure. Yes. Thank you for hearing me this evening. Yeah, so we use a geode with a tablet and it's sub-meter accuracy. So, you know, we pick up the points with this. It's a survey grade GPS unit and they're post-processed. So, you know, it's not surveyed down to the inch, certainly like a standard survey would be, but it is sub-meter. So we're talking, you know, an accuracy of, you know, within 3 feet. And if you need data on exactly what the accuracy is, we can certainly provide that. But, you know, it is sub-meter accuracy and typical for what we do in Massachusetts for delineation of wetlands and location. And what we can do is provide the CAD files. I know that is a potential request from the Conservation Commission, so that's something that we can present to you in a shapefile if needed. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So that you said the unit is a geode. Is this what the manufacturer is?
A geode, yeah, that is the manufacturer
Yes,
of
okay.
the unit. Yeah, it's a GPS receiver that we hook up to our tablets.
Okay.
And
I'm more familiar with some of the other manufacturers' projects. I haven't used a geode before, so just want to make sure I have it correct.
It's similar if you're familiar with like a Trimble sub-meter accuracy. So it's very similar. That Trimbles are what we used years ago, and now Trimbles are kind of clunky. So this is just a faster and more accurate way of collecting data. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Questions, comments, concerns from the commission? While we're thinking, also like to open it up to the public. If there's anyone here this evening who wishes to ask a question or make a comment regarding this project, please use the raise hand function. I see Kevin Miller has joined us. Melissa, if you could promote Kevin up.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Hi, Conservation Commission.
Good evening.
Thanks for having me. Kevin Miller, 18 Lattisquama. I am a direct abutter to the subject parcel. And just have a question that perhaps Mr. Orzel can answer. As I understand it, Mr. Orzel and Mr. Lazi Ward met at the parcel on July 11th to review Mr. Lazi Ward's initial was a 119-page document essentially delineating the area, you know, delineating the wetlands area. And there was some disagreement or some what I thought was characterized as kind of mild difference of opinion about the boundaries. And so as I understand it, the proposal then was to further test by allowing growth to come up in that area and basically to not mow there for a period in July and into some unspecified date into August. And you had your August 22nd meeting when the matter was continued because the applicant's representative wasn't available. And the question I had at the time concerned the testing and the refraining from mowing pursuant to the weather conditions. From July 11th to the end of the month, as you know, it's been quite dry. July, August, and now into September. The rainfall total in Southborough for the remainder of July, after July 11th, was 1.8 inches. Didn't rain a lot in August. And I raised the question because, of course, as I'm sure everybody here knows, this is a very low area. The contour maps show that, you know, from the flat of Lattisquama Road area, it descends some 50 feet to the subject wetland area from Lattisquama, roughly 20 feet from where Park Street departs from Main Street, and then 10 feet or more down from Boston Road. So from the north, east, and west, it's a real collection point. You have that intermittent stream that runs parallel to Newton Street, resumes in the area near the old mill owned by Mr. Falcone, is piped under the railroad tracks, and again reemerges as a stream to the small pond on the subject property, then is again put in a kind of conduit and brought down to, what is that, the area bounded by Peggy Drive, Foley Drive, Birchwood, and McNeil and William Colery Lane, which is, again, marshy wetlands. So it's a very low, very wet, very sensitive area. During the testing period, again, as I mentioned, it only rained a little more than 1.5 inches during July. I would just, remind people, and I'm sure you all remember this, what other years have been like. In July of 2021, just 3 years ago, it rained nearly 14 inches in July and another 5.5 in August, and we had 19 plus inches of rain. So I have a question about the testing when, we are in a warming and wetter climate where you have the potential for some tremendous rain. And the test period here, we were very, very notably under. Now, I understand the vegetation in some ways doesn't change, but just my casual, certified wetland scientist observation is that when it's really wet, different stuff grows and grows in more profusion. So I'm very curious to hear how Mr. Orzel controls and what the specific controls are for a test period that's dry.
Thank you very much, Kevin. So obviously this is something that absolutely is considered. I think I know the answer that Joe will give. I'll turn it over to him. The wetlands delineation methodology, I think a description of that will answer your question.
Yeah, so hydrology is highly variable, is essentially what you're describing. It is one of the variables that we look at when we're doing a delineation or reviewing a delineation. We also look at vegetation, which provides a much better long-term indicator of the wetness or hydrology of an area. But there's some variability in that also, depending on the season. And we also look at soils, which are a very good indicator of the long-term hydrology of an area. So you look at all three of those factors and come to a determination based on review of those as to where the most likely boundary of the wetland is. And that was what we did on our second site visit. The vegetation was more developed. We were able to identify much more than we were on the initial site visit. We looked quite extensively with the hand auger at the soils, and we came to an agreement as far as where the jurisdictional boundary of the wetland is at that site.
And Joe, correct me if I'm wrong. The evidence that you find looking for hydric soils once soils have become hydric, that is, have been subject to inundation and supporting the wetland, that evidence will remain in the soil matrix for basically in perpetuity. Once it has become wet and it has become depleted and oxidized and all that kind of stuff, that evidence, it doesn't go away, regardless of what the weather is doing at the moment, this particular year or whatever.
That is correct. There can be some minor changes, relatively minor changes in the appearance of some of the modeling in the soil. But your statement is generally correct. Once the hydric soil is formed, it remains. The hydric soil indicators, they remain.
Does that make sense, Kevin? There's this longer term indicator that they look for that it doesn't change with the yearly variation in weather. It's a sort of it becomes almost a geological record of where the wetland has been.
Yeah, that makes sense, and I understand it. The one thing I would say is I remain curious as to whether this evaluation considers what happens when it does rain 19 inches in July, whether or not it changes the underlying structure of the soil or the plants or not. I'm just pointing out that we are in a time of increasingly, this is a very sensitive area. It's responsible for carrying off a great deal of water. And I'm curious if there's a consideration of things are getting wetter, not drier, as an overall trend.
So this is going to be kind of a funny answer, but I'll explain it. There is, but not part of this particular process. So what's happening here with this abbreviated notice of resource area delineation is in our entire jurisdiction in the matter is to establish a snapshot of where the wetland physically lays today. Now, this information is typically used by an applicant so that they can plan for some sort of project they want to put onto the parcel. Now that they know where the wetland is, they can invest the time and effort into engineering some kind of design. That will come back to the commission, typically in the form of a notice of intent, which is a much more extensive application. And that is the time where they have to demonstrate that that whatever they're proposing isn't going to exacerbate flooding in any way. And in terms of addressing climate change, the commission has recently adopted a much more stringent standard of rainfall totals for the various design storms that applicants have to evaluate their designs against. So that's the step I think that addresses what it sounds like is your concern.
Yeah, thank you. It's very informative. I appreciate the time.
Of course. Okay, any other questions, comments, concerns from the commission or from anyone joining us from the public this evening?
What I've been thinking about for the GPS accuracy is in our previous hearing, we had an applicant move a line 4 feet. And with accuracy of about 3 feet, I'm not sure if that's close enough or not. That's what I'm trying to figure out here. But
understood. I will say that geez. Melissa, have we, geez, I don't know if we've had GPS wetland lines submitted. I just assume that we have, and we just weren't aware of it. But
yeah, all the ANRADs, I'll say in the 6 years I've been with you, all the ANRADs we've had have been on, some sort of survey plan, kind of existing conditions plan.
Yeah.
If it's something that the commission is open to, getting those specific GPS coordinates and then the AutoCAD file or shape file, that might be a way that if something comes in front of us, we can further verify, that those things match. Because most likely, I would assume, if there's a project proposed that would require a more formal, engineering plan, since it'll be, something new. So it's, I know I struggled with it. I talked with Heather a lot about it in the beginning, based on what we had seen historically and wanting to see a stamp plan, existing conditions plan. But if we have an ability to somehow document those exact coordinates for the record, that might be kind of a way to kind of consolidate those concerns and record them as such, in our files.
Yeah. Yeah, we have to make sure that anything ultimately approved under the ANRAD process, that line can be verifiably placed onto the existing conditions plan for, say, a notice of intent. I will say that in my prior career, civil engineer, I used a Trimble equipment, but they're sub-foot GPS receiver for the location of wetland flags. As we were speaking, I looked up the geode from Juniper Systems. I guess it's available in a few different models: sub-meter, sub-foot, sub-decimeter. It sounds like you've got the sub-meter. I think if we have, oh boy. Yeah, I keep running into the snag that we don't have them on an existing conditions plan. Which that's a requirement that we have in our local bylaw for an ANRAD, an RDA, or an ANRAD or an NOI. Is that correct?
Yeah, usually, and I can pull up the specifics. I think it requires for it. Yeah, it requested like, structures and things like that as an existing conditions plan.
Yeah. I'm having some trouble getting past that. This is a requirement that we made of every other applicant that's come before us.
Yeah, my understanding was that the ANRAD needed to provide the wetlands on a stamped plan, but it didn't say, who the stamp was from necessarily. So I stamped it as a certified wetland biologist with, certified wetland scientist. And Melissa, as Melissa stated, she and I had a little back and forth about exactly what the requirements are. I think that at the time of an NOI, the flags could be surveyed in, or they could be dropped in via shapefile, or, which can be converted to CAD. Mm-hmm. So those would be able to be accurately placed on an existing conditions plan. But as far as I could see, and Melissa, I know you know the regulations very well, it didn't appear to be a requirement of an ANRAD to have a professional land surveyor pick up the flags and present them with the ANRAD. That just didn't, it wasn't my understanding that was part of the requirement process for the ANRAD.
Yeah, so in our regulations, section 4 calls out plans and engineering information. And I think where we struggled is that there's plan requirements for an RDA and then just plan requirements for an application for permit. So there's nothing specific for ANRAD versus NOI, but under that plan requirements for an application for permit, it kind of calls out the following information at a minimum, name and locations of adjacent roadways, property lines, the name of the person, doing the drawings, the resource areas, location of all present proposed structures and paved areas, and or the 20-foot no work zone. and contours, etc. So that 4.3 in our regulations kind of, it's just under the section application for permit. So it's not necessarily specific to ANRAD versus NOI.
Our regs say require a stamped plan, but don't give indication who that stamp must be from.
On all drawings, the title designated the project location, the name of the person preparing the drawings, the date prepared, and any revision dates. Let me see. Projects. I don't think so. I want to say there's a statement in there somewhere just about, qualified professional. Oh, the location of consecutively numbered flags denoting the wetland resources shall be shown on a plan and shall be certified by a registered land surveyor, registered sanitarian, professional engineer, or wetland scientist. Delineation of the border of the Southborough Wetland Bylaw, 20-foot no work zone.
Okay.
So it does specify wetland scientist.
Okay. Thank you for looking into that. That's something we may wish to revisit the next time we fly into our bylaw. But for right now, I'd be curious to hear from Kevin and Liz. It sounds like the plan does comply with our bylaw, and I'm confident that if we're provided with either a shape file or a CAD file, we can verify that the correct locations are being used.
Yeah.
There's a, oh, go ahead, Kevin.
Oh, no, sorry. I was just going to say, I think we might want to in the future think about capturing, the accuracy of those points as far as the device. But since we don't have that, I don't think we can hold this one up.
Yep. No, I agree. Is that, where do you fall, Liz?
Yeah, I agree, but I do think we should work towards updating it so we're in more violent agreement in the future.
Yeah. Okay. So let's put that on the list for our next the next time that we go into the regs for an update. Okay. So with that, Joe, you said this. Excuse me.
Sorry, Ben, there is one hand up in the public just for
excuse me.
Just so you know. You don't have to
Marcy Jones, my apologies. I wasn't looking over to the side of the screen there.
Good evening, Conservation. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking my comment. It's not really a question, it's more of a comment, but I appreciate that the applicant is trying to use advanced technology, GPS, but I would appreciate if Conservation, would closely look at this, because I've personally seen the flags. I live at 18 Landisquam as a direct abutter. And if you add 3 feet at every flag, as the applicant representative mentions, you will in fact end up with quite a bit more border than you would if you surveyed the actual flag points. So that's very significant in this small area. As Mr. Miller mentioned, it's quite sensitive. 3 feet at every flag is a significant increase. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, was somebody? Okay. Yeah, we have not been confronted with this specific question before, and it appears to be somewhat of a blind spot in our regs. I think when a notice.
Sorry, can you remind me of the overall, just in response to that question that was just asked, what is the overall square footage of the area? Or I guess I can pull it up.
We don't have necessarily an area, we have linear feet, so I think it got expanded to about 280, I think. So it was really that finger that got added since the original submission.
Okay. So excuse me, Heather, you may or may not be able to answer this. Do you have just an estimate or even a guess as to when you you and the development group maybe coming back with a future application, you know, a notice of intent or an RDA or whatever. You know, we don't know what you're contemplating, but do you have a horizon?
In terms of when we would be filing an application for something
do you
further?
think like in the spring or 3 years from now? No.
No, it's truly just to really just gain an idea of what's out there for wetlands, really. There's really no plan in the works currently.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, again, just to address the accuracy one last time. So this sub-meter accuracy means that they call it the circular error of precision is 3 feet in diameter. So we're talking about roughly 3 feet, plus or minus 1.5 feet is the accuracy. Typically in an area without huge amounts of canopy, you get somewhat tighter accuracy than that. Just so that we have a handle on what we're talking about here. Again, I think we're in a situation where something we haven't run into before, and this isn't addressed with enough specificity, I don't think, in our bylaw. But here we are, I think we have an application that meets the technical requirements of the bylaw. And as we've said, this is something that we will be addressing in the future to tighten up the bylaw. Does that to the commission, did I capture that correctly? Yeah. So with that, Melissa, we don't have any outstanding issues that I'm aware of. We've got the review from Joe, concurrence on the flag locations, DEP number and so forth. Excuse me, there's no number for an ANRAD.
No, there's a number. There's a number.
Oh, there is. Okay.
I think the only outstanding was if he mentioned the flag numbers on the plan. If that's something we wanted to be seen. And then, you know, it's not technically, I don't know, I guess it would depend if you consider that new information, if it's the same plan, just numbered, and or the submittal of the GPS coordinates in the shapefile.
We certainly need to have a plan on hand showing the numbers. The flags are used as reference points, certainly throughout subsequent parts of the permitting and even throughout the construction phase of the project, if there is ultimately a project. So we'll need to get that. I think that's something that we can probably condition unless there's strong feeling to the contrary. And I think we would certainly like to get a shape file or a CAD file, as well as just a sort of an if all else fails kind of situation, the coordinates of the GPS points, if you could dump those out to a CSV file or something.
Sure, we can absolutely, you know, provide the flag numbers on the plan and also provide a shape file.
Okay. And
yep.
you
Happy
can
to do that.
a list of the you probably export right out of ArcPad or our ArcGIS
ArcGIS.
The listing of the actual coordinates.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else from the commission? And I see there is a hand up. Kevin Miller.
Hi, sorry to break in again, and I hate to belabor this for you, but just as a note on procedure, since this abbreviated ANRAD was not posted in the public packet, it would be useful if Melissa's able to do it, to at least bring the map up on the screen so that people looking at this meeting later will know what we've been talking about for the last 20 minutes. Otherwise, until your minutes are posted, I suppose, with the report, there's no way for anybody to understand what we're discussing here. That's the new map. Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
So this is essentially the finger that was added.
The northern section, the boundary was brought down slope by on average of, I would say, 4 feet, maybe 10 feet in some areas. And then that finger that Melissa pointed out was the extension.
Okay.
After we allowed the vegetation to grow in and it was identifiable.
Thank you. And thank you, Kevin.
Yes, thank you. I just appreciate that for folks who might want to look in on the recording and understand what the discussion's about. So thank you and good night.
Good night. Okay, so with that, I guess we'd be looking at a motion to issue an order of resource area delineation, subject to the conditions that the commission be provided with a shape file or a CAD file of the wetland line, a plan updated with flag numbers on it, and a listing of the coordinates on Massachusetts State Plane Grid of the wetland flags themselves. Someone care to make that motion?
To issue and close the hearing, just to add in on that.
Oh, excuse me. To close the hearing. Excuse me. Yeah. So we need a motion first to close the hearing. I jumped the gun on the conditions.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Thank you.
Zulik?
Yes.
Barrington?
Yes.
And I'm yes.
All right. And now the issuance.
Okay. So is there a motion to issue an order of resource area delineation conditioned as I described a moment ago?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Zulik?
Yes.
Barrington?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us tonight. Okay, next. Oh, excuse me. Notice of intent, 20 and 22 Turnpike Road, continued notice of intent in accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Southborough Wetlands Bylaw. The Southborough Conservation Commission will conduct a continued public hearing on Thursday, September 12, 2024 at 8:00 p.m. via a virtual Zoom meeting. The commission will consider two notices of intent for projects located at 20 Turnpike Road, map 39, lot 28, and 22 Turnpike Road, map 39, lot 29 and 32 for the applicant PLB LLC. The project description is restoration of buffer zone activities that exceeded the originally approved work limits for construction of a self-storage and golf range facility, respectively. These hearings will be held concurrently. Good evening, Peter.
Yes, good evening. Thank you. I can share screen and I have drawings up, or you can allow Joe to make his comments. I know they came in today, but I have no issues with any of his points that he's raised.
Let's have Joe speak first, and then
okay.
And then we'll be ready to intelligently take a look at the plan.
Okay, you got it. Thank you. So Joe is going to speak. Joe, do you need my plan?
Nope, I've got
okay, very good,
Joe. Just getting my comments in front of me so I can read from them. So I did have a chance to review the revised information which was submitted. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get that in until shortly before the hearing, but I just wanted to go over the remaining comments that I have based on our initial review, and I'll refer to those by number in the initial review if anyone has that in front of you. So comment 4A was regarding native vegetation plantings in impact area C. It noted that the revised plan label indicates that there are 5 shrubs to be planted there. The plan shows 6. So I'd recommend that that be revised to show 6. Comment 4B regarding the same area. The revised plans indicate removal of gravel and asphalt area and replanting of native vegetation. I recommend that the plans also indicate a minimum depth of loam to be added. I'd say at least 6 inches and maybe 12 inches. The commission can certainly discuss that. Comment 4C. This was regarding an area that is currently in use that initially was not supposed to have been disturbed. The applicant is requesting that the commission allow that to be continued under its current use. And that's something that the commission will need to discuss. The applicant can provide a more detailed description of the activities that are there now. Comment 5A, this is regarding area mitigation or impact area D. I had recommended some additional native plantings. Those have been added. Just pointed out that graphically, the number of plants shown in the area does not match what is described in the text for the area. So it'd be good if that could be revised to be the same, so there's no confusion as far as the number of plants going in there. Comment 5B. Let's see. This was regarding odor of some petroleum that I had noticed when I was in that particular area. The applicant is stating that they will make sure that they comply with all required regulations. I'd recommend that whatever soil testing that might be done there, that any results be provided to the Conservation Commission. And then as a new comment, they had provided a invasive species management plan, which was new. I think generally it appears appropriate. It is presented as kind of a living document that is subject to change as needed based on conditions that are encountered and how things develop. Would recommend that any condition be included that requires the applicant to notify the commission of any changes in selected methods of invasive species control. The invasive species plan should also state that herbicide applications are to be performed only by licensed herbicide applicators. And in addition, the plan indicates Roundup to be used in an area near intermittent stream. Roundup should not be used in wetlands or near waterways. The rodeo is the formulation of glyphosate that should be used in wetlands and wet areas. So that should be revised to indicate rodeo instead of Roundup. And there's one final comment. It didn't look like all the plant numbers had been updated on the schedule, that is the planting schedule that is listed on the site plans to reflect the revised numbers. So I just recommend that the applicant verify that the newly proposed plant numbers are reflected in the schedule that is on the site plan. And that was the extent of my comments at this time.
Thank you, Joe. Okay, Peter, so with that, so you've received Joe's comments Okay,
Right, yeah, no, and I'm fine with them all. The only thing that we are asking for that Joe's raising to you is maintaining that area. We are pulling back so that the buffer zone is ensured everywhere, but that is an active area that's currently used at the site, and I think it was all permittable. I'm sorry that the proponent didn't go through the right channels to do it, but they have done so on the back end. All the fees were paid, and we did file a notice to bring the site into compliance. So I think effectively we are doing this, and we are responding in kind with the mitigation methods that we're proposing here. So I do believe we can get to the final approval of the plan as presented, if you concur. So, and again, I can go through the plans and take a deeper dive if you'd like. The plant numbers, probably a few too many interruptions that day to not get all these numbers to match. I do apologize. The intent was to pretty much mimic what Joe had outlined, and in some instances, we actually did more than what Joe asked for, because it made sense. So.
Okay, thank you.
Through the chair, one additional comment, which I just thought of, which I hadn't included. I know the planting plan includes quite a few viburnum, but the species.
You put a lot of viburnum in, yeah.
Right, so there are no species indicated. Just think that should be identified a little bit further as far as which species are being proposed. Okay. I didn't know if it was all being considered as one species or several species of viburnums.
I was just trying to keep natives, Joe, and because of their the flora fauna component of it. So and again, a lot of this is upland area more so than wetland, but we're in a buffer zone, so that's why we picked the viburnum. It's a pretty hardy plant. So
right, and there are different species, and some prefer it wetter than others.
Yeah.
So and maybe a little more definition on the species proposed.
Okay. I can work that out with Melissa. I mean, pretty much I could just come up with a plant list on what's available and then have her approve it before it goes in place. That'd be one way to control it. That way we're all on the same page.
Questions, comments from the commission? While you're thinking, I'll start off first regarding the area that's currently in use that Peter was talking about. This is in many ways sort of it's covering some changes to prior work, but it is also in itself sort of a de novo filing. And if this is work that is permittable under the Act, I think it is appropriate to address it through this filing. And again, that part of this, we ensure that it is in compliance with the Act and any required mitigation is provided. And it sounds like with some minor details to be wrapped up here, it sounds to me like we're closing in on that.
Yeah, we'd like to be able to close this out with you tonight, because we would like to get the work done. The growing season is it's going to be closing if we don't get this in this fall. So I would like to try to do that. The edits that we need to do, Joe's documented them, and again, I plan on doing all this in conjunction with Melissa, so that we were kind of an open page here and make sure that we get everything just the way you folks would expect it. We can do an as-built to also ensure for a certificate of compliance before one was requested.
Let's see. Just lost my train of thought. Okay, so my understanding is the plans right now, the only modification that you'd be making to the plans is regarding potentially plant species, but plant number.
Yeah, graphically, some of the circles probably didn't match up with the numbers that were listed. For the most part, I think that's what you're going to end up seeing, or in some cases, I think you'll see this probably more circles than there are for the number that was there. But the intent was to provide a lot more plantings, because that's what Joe's observation was, in various portions of the site. That I believe is done, and documented. We would make sure that the numbers all matched in the final plan.
Melissa, would you be comfortable and have the bandwidth to make that comparison with, if we were to condition the provision of a plan with these planting updates, would you?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. Before I forget, if there's anyone here from the public who wishes to offer a comment or ask a question about this project, please use the raise hand function and we'll move you up so that you can do that. So yeah, Liz and Kevin, if you feel differently, I'd love to hear it. I feel like we might be in a place where we could condition an approval here to address the last details of the plantings. And we would have, as our backstop, we would have Melissa's eye on things, which I would feel comfortable.
That's fine with me.
Yeah, and I'd say the other conditions are just, as Joe stated in his latest review, but because also had the change to the use of which, Roundup versus rodeo in those areas. So those would be the findings. And then the condition about the soil testing to be submitted to the commission, just to reiterate those. So I pretty much follow what Joe put in his latest email from today for this, for those conditions. And
Okay.
and when there's a variation between the plans and the table, whatever has more shall
Yes.
govern.
Perfect. Perfect.
I did have one thing to bring up. It reminded me, the petroleum scent on the soil reminded me that, well, we do want to get those results. So if those should be a condition as well, but also, gasoline powered mowers and stuff are being worked on and fueled in the buffer zone area, and should probably, I was wondering if we could put a condition to say that you can't do that. I know the site's planning to switch to electric mowers and robotic mowers, but so might be a moot point, but it would be good to capture that maybe.
We can, yeah, we can certainly put a condition, no refueling of equipment or vehicles within the buffer zone to any resource area on the site.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. When Kevin and I were on site, they happened to be working on a mower right near that area, and then the owner had said they were switching over to electric mowers, and I was like, well, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is in our standard conditions, but it's usually for the during construction.
Yeah.
So I can add an additional one in perpetuity if that's what you're kind of getting to, Kevin.
I was, yeah, just thinking if anything gets spilled, it's going right.
Yeah.
Where we don't want it.
So, I'm sorry.
No, just as a reminder, this is two separate NOIs. So
Yeah.
just when we do a vote, we can do them together, but just referencing both.
Yes. So the first step is to close these two concurrent public hearings. Let's see. Is there a motion to close the concurrent hearings for 20 Turnpike Road and 22 Turnpike Road?
So moved.
In a second?
Second.
Zulik,
Yes.
Barrington,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes. Okay, and we've done a bunch of discussing of conditions. Melissa, you've got a record of our discussions. I think we could consider a motion to issue an order of conditions conditioned as discussed here this evening.
So move.
Thank you. Kevin?
Second.
Thank you.
Zulik,
Yes.
Barrington,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
All right, Peter.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Yep. Have a good evening. Thank you.
Oh, you've got one more thing on tonight, right, Peter?
Yeah, well, I do. Do you want me to,
Let's see,
would
we
the next
have,
proponent mind if we just spoke quickly about
Oh,
2 East
they're
Main?
not here, so go right ahead.
Oh, they're not even here. Okay,
Yeah.
great.
yeah, so, Main Street, East Main.
Right. Well, I've been a cooperative neighbor again. They're down there doing work on the gas main. So the gas company's kind of taken over the property the last few weeks. I know my son Tyler is doing work on my son Zachary's home here in town, and we had planned on moving some of those millings off. But this week has not been a very good week, or the last couple of weeks have not been good weeks to do it. So I would anticipate that we can get something off next week, possibly as early as tomorrow, because Tyler's going to be on there tomorrow doing work. But it will come in the next few weeks. We're all heading to North Carolina. I have a dear uncle that had open heart surgery, so there will be a little delay on that too. But my intent is to try to get that site set up, and I would just ask for your patience. Seems like anytime something's going on downtown, they need that land to do work. And I've been pretty cooperative about that over the years. I mean, all those millings came from the work down there to begin with. Okay.
Yeah, I've gotten caught in the traffic around the gas work a few times now, and I've seen the stockpiling on that piece of property. So I certainly understand that it's not possible to do it right now with all that work going on. It's barely possible to drive through there. Never mind get a dump in there and a loader. I guess my feeling is we keep it on the agenda for next meeting.
Fine. I'll give you an update. Sure. That's I have no problem with that, Mr. Chairman. No problem at all.
You know, the gas main work, I understand, is going to be wrapping up fairly shortly, right? It's by the end of next week. Is that correct? I think
so.
Yeah, I think it's going to be at least substantially beyond your parcel, and you may be able to get some access.
Okay.
Okay.
It may be that we're out of town that week, though. I'm just being
Okay.
honest. That
Understood.
yeah, but I'll see you in 3 weeks, and by then I should
Okay.
at least be able to show you some momentum going in the direction that you're looking for.
Does that sound good, Kevin and Liz? Does that sound?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so we'll keep it on the agenda and we'll chat then. Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. Good evening.
Have a good night. Okay, next up, a notice of intent, 120 Turnpike Road. In accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Southborough Wetlands Bylaw, the Southborough Conservation Commission will conduct a continued public hearing on Thursday, September 12, 2024 at 8:10 p.m. via a virtual Zoom meeting. The commission will consider a notice of intent for a project located at 120 Turnpike Road, map 37, lot 120-4, for the applicant FD 120 Turnpike LLC. The project description is the construction of a 60-unit apartment building. This is still before the ZBA, and the ZBA still hasn't even processed what waivers they're going to be granting on the project, as I understand it, right? Is that our current situation?
Yeah, so not to be a broken record, you know, they did again plan to be here tonight, but I think Joe was actually the one who did some review on the property, found some areas that they needed to reassess on the site plan. So I believe they're working on those, working on the revised package, and they just received kind of their first peer review letter under the ZBA permit. So, you know, which did, to Ben's point, pull out a lot of things that they needed to update in regards to the bylaw waiver list. So I'm assuming they're working on that. So they have requested a continuance tonight, mainly because those plans are just kind of continuing to change. So I hate putting it off, but I also don't necessarily want there to be a different plan in front of the commission every single meeting. I think that would be a little confusing as well. So they're still on our radar, but no official revised package has been submitted to us to date, anyways.
Yeah, it's been a while, but we did with a 40B kind of chase a moving target in the past, and it was a disaster. We frankly, we don't do anybody any good trying to process this until we know what the project actually is. So I think that's the path forward. Is there a motion to continue 120 Turnpike Road to our October 3rd meeting?
So moved.
Thank you. In a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Zulik,
Yes.
Barrington,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes. Okay. We've already done Dairy Farm Lane. There's a COC for 10 Overlook Drive.
Yes. So Joe went out earlier in August. The site had been regraded based on comments from Board of Health, so it hadn't quite been stabilized yet. There was some rills and ruts from the downspouts in an area that they appeared to have regraded that was outside the erosion control. It's kind of to the left of the house. I think partly in, partly outside the 100-foot buffer zone, so not directly adjacent to the wetland. There was some yard debris piles that were in the rear within the buffer zone. And I think just overall stabilization was still needed. Erosion controls have been out, the lawn has been seeded. They put both stone under the gutters and or the downspout flares to help alleviate some of that rills and erosion. And it also has stabilized in that area, so there's no further ruts that are happening from the downspouts and the gutters. They removed the yard waste in the back. And is there anything else? No, I think they'd regraded that spot in the front to eliminate ponding, so that it drained towards the road. I believe Board of Health still hasn't issued their certificate of compliance. They're just doing final checks, but we did get the updated as-built as well as revised, I think of as yesterday or 2 days ago, that reshot the grades after that regrading, very similar, just a very small pitch change where the septic is, and everything else, from what I can remember, I think I hit all Joe's comments, but I, verified the yard waste removed, stabilized, and that they fixed those downspouts and put some protection on them. So I didn't see anything else outstanding. They had done a little bit of, I think, cleanup around the house. It's been abandoned or unlived in, at least for the last 7 or so years. So there was some general, I think, brush that they had cleaned up, not necessarily clearing of an area, but trimming back that they kind of put in the back. That's been since removed.
So it sounds like we're ready for a certificate of compliance. Any questions, comments before I look for a motion?
Yeah.
Okay, so looking for a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for 10 Overlook Drive.
So moved.
Thank you. Second.
Second.
Thanks.
Zulik,
Yes.
Barrington,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
All right.
Oh boy. 34 Sears Road.
So we've gotten nothing.
Wow.
Nothing. So the only real suggestion I have at this point, I guess, is we can either reach out to town council for their guidance, or we can hold an official administrative hearing for the issuance of fines. This is another certified notice to the property owner. But at this hearing, we could actually, it gives the owner a chance to understand the fines, rebut any comments, etc. But ultimately, the commission would then be able to officially issue, fines that are enforceable. So, not sure what your thoughts are moving forward. If you have a preference, or if you want to try and send one more letter, but essentially we've already said the fines have started on this date. They've been accumulating. I didn't do the calculation as of today what those fines would be, but I can definitely get that out for next week. But obviously would have that for the hearing. But that's kind of, I think, the best next steps that I could think of at this point, given the lack of response.
Boy, how many ongoing violations are there? Is it 2? Not the non-removal of the culvert and it's a required filing, is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's potentially $600 per day.
For a good amount of days now.
And if we're being honest, this violation has been ongoing for months on end. We've already shown a great deal of forbearance. You know, it's always been our goal in the past to not issue fines, and if folks suddenly start cooperating, to waive the fines. I hope we have the opportunity to do that here, but I can't think of any other next step.
Yeah, so, and just as an FYI for the record, we had the fine collection date start July 12th, 2024, so exactly two months.
Oh my goodness. I mean, this is wacky. That's potentially $36,000. 60 days times $600 a day. We will have to at some point sit down, and our finding authority is up to $300 per violation per day. I think I'd love to have more of the commission here for that discussion.
I mean, I hate to say we can push it off, but you know, to your point, it has been there. You know, I can send another intermediary letter in between to state the commission is most likely going to discuss an administrative hearing, you know, at a subsequent meeting this year.
Melissa, have you gone like knocked on their door and there's no response, or do we not do that? Or
so there's not a house there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's you know, it's owned by Petrie through a trust. You know, their business address is their 259 Turnpike, so that's where it all goes. Yeah, but it's an undeveloped lot because it all used to be kind of one homestead, kind of.
Yeah.
It's so frustrating because the resolution here is simple. Capital Group Properties, or I don't know if it's Capital Group or Mr. Petrie himself, the owner, but if there's anybody equipped to take care of this stuff, you know, quickly, can't think of him.
Yeah, and they were,
the,
you know,
the letter, perhaps maybe a letter that you know, at our October 3rd meeting, we're going to you know, calculate we're going to assess. I'm trying to think of the right language. I mean, fines have these violations have been ongoing for over 2 months at this point, and at our next meeting, we will be you know, calculating the dollar amount, I guess.
So do you want to hold an official hearing at the next meeting, or just kind of a general discussion for then a hearing after that?
I think we need to have it. I think we need to have the hearing.
Okay.
Does everyone?
I agree.
If anyone feels otherwise, by all means, you know.
So I haven't done an administrative hearing. What's involved and what's different than what we're doing right now, which is just letting these accrue?
We'll again, we'll send a certified letter to the property owner. Melissa, there's not notification to abutters in this case. Is that correct?
Correct.
Correct. Okay. So there's a, you know, an official certified notification to the property owner. We go through and we calculate the fines. We also make notification to DEP of the assessment of fines. Is that correct?
I don't think we have
under local
fines under the bylaw. Yeah.
Okay. But it is a public hearing for the purpose of assessing fines. And again, if the applicant decides to simply engage with us and begin bringing the site into compliance, we'll have the opportunity to, while the work's going on, maybe put the fines into forbearance, and then if the work gets done in a timely fashion, to even waive them if that's the commission's will. But at this point, we're just being ignored, and this stuff has to be addressed.
And once fines are assessed, it's kind of out of our control at that point. So it's better to handle this with that before that. Is that kind of the?
Gosh, it's better for everybody to handle it before then, you know, the applicant, for us. Now, once we assess the fines, it's still within our you know, control. Like, as I said, if the applicant shows a willingness to work with us, you know, we can put the fines sort of into forbearance. And if they ultimately bring the site into compliance, we can conduct a vote to waive the fines. So we do maintain that control. It's not sort of out of our hands once we assess the fines.
Okay. I didn't know if it goes over to, you know, enforcement authorities to go.
Yeah, I mean, if things get to that point, you know, that's never really happened before. We've always managed to get folks to comply, you know. It's always a mystery why we have such a struggle sometimes to do that, but ultimately it's always worked. So I hope that's going to happen in this case. I feel like this is, I don't know. We could certainly act much more aggressively, but to me, this feels like the right thing to do is to have the public hearing on October 3rd. Okay.
You got it.
Okay.
Okay.
You're
Joe,
up.
if you want to skedaddle, I think you're good. I think we're done with you. Not to say goodbye, but start your vacation maybe. Okay. So let's see, we did Tui's Main, conservation agent report. So
We've got one more under newer continued business. We have administrative amendment to Breakneck. Yeah.
Yes, that would be a bad one to forget. Okay. So ultimately, this is something that we discussed previously, but we finally got the plan submitted. TRC updated this. So it's just outlining this change in the access road to make a little bit of a wider turn to turn left. And then they'll be now entering the site through this area. So there's a little bit of more tree clearing, which stewardship is ironically happy about because there's some invasives in there. So this is actually kind of a win-win for all of us. And then this hashed line area is the area where the previous construction entrance was, where the swamp mats have been removed. And I made sure that TRC put a comment on that this needs to be restored sooner rather than later, especially since we're in the growing season. So the contractor knows that the previously disturbed areas to be restored, at least temporarily, until we can do final restoration next year. And then this will be the new access to the dump cleanup. So this is, you know, we kind of agreed on an administrative approval, and as an update for this is the plan for the entrance, you know, just kind of widening this area right here and the new change in entry. That's kind of where we are.
Okay. So for administrative amendment, all it takes is just a vote of the commission for something that's sort of this minor nature, and just sort of gets stuffed in the file with the order.
Yeah, so I usually do a quick memo outlining our vote and attach the plan to it just for our records. And if there was an applicant besides us, then it would go there too.
Okay, so questions, comments from the commission? Any questions or comments from members of the public? Please use the raise hand function and we'll bring you up. Looks like they're not. With that, is there a motion to issue an administrative amendment to the Breakneck Hill Farm Dump Cleanup order of conditions as presented this evening by Melissa?
So moved.
In a second?
Second.
Zulik?
Yes.
Barrington?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. And I will jump around a little bit and piggyback on Breakneck since I have Farm Dump a little bit later on. So essentially today I met with DEP, gave them an update on all of the changes to the access, the asbestos management plan, etc. They're more than happy with our communication, more than happy with the changes that have been made. I believe we're just waiting on the approval for the asbestos abatement work plan. And we had to do a project notification form to the Mass Historical Commission because of the changes. Trying to wrap my head around what triggered that, but Taylor from TRC walked me all through it. That has a 30-day presumptive approval. They're trying to get that a little bit sooner so that best case scenario, we can actually get started on some of this access road work next week. Once I have a finalized date, I was going to send an email to the commission, stewardship, and the community gardens coordinator just to let them know that they'll kind of be starting up again. Worst case scenario, probably right after town meeting, we would get started because that's when all of our presumptive approvals have expired and we'd be good to go. From a financial standpoint, we still have a good amount left over from the original approval at town meeting since we haven't spent as much since we put a stop to it. So this work is covered under the money that's already been budgeted at a previous town approval or town meeting. And then we are Article 15 on September 30th for the additional unfortunate almost 2.2 million. So we've kind of doubled, unfortunately, the price of the project solely due to the additional asbestos found in those small friable pieces, so it can't be screened out. So I know Select Board voted favorably to support the article. Advisory has their statement of at town meeting. I've been trying to keep an eye on their agendas because I had heard some word that advisory might not be supportive based on the other projects that have been going on. So advisory doesn't seem to have actually talked about any of the articles kind of to date, except for some joint meetings with the Select Board and Planning Board for MBTA. So I've been keeping my eye on that. I'm hopeful that they will issue a motion of support. They did ask when I attended the April 27th meeting of the Select Board to look into other grants or ways to fund this. I looked again, I reiterated, there's nothing really quite that fits this bill. I hate to put it this way, but it's not a bad enough project. It's not hazardous, it's not a brownfield, it's not contamination. They also, I think the chair of Select Board Advisory, while copying me, reached out to state reps to see if there was anything available there, and they kind of quickly got back to us that they couldn't find anything either. So I have tried consistently in both phases of this project to find additional or separate funding sources. But this just as a kind of solid waste with some asbestos in it doesn't quite fit a lot of those categories. It's not climate resiliency. It's not watershed protection, really. It's just there. So that's kind of our only choice. DEP has been very I guess I've been very thankful for their, we've been very communicative with them, so they're willing to work with us. We do have to extend the deadline to finish the work because that would have expired September 28th. So by the end of the next week, we're getting them a timeline or a schedule for the end of the project. So that's kind of where we are now. I'll be there on the 30th. My understanding that Marguerite on the Select Board is doing at least the statement of support from the Select Board, and I think she believed that I was doing a presentation, so I'll at least put together some sort of one-pager like we had at the first town meeting to put on the table, and or just have something quick, to go over what the changes and the reasons are. If there's anyone else that's there that would like to do discussion or whatnot, please let me know. I'd be happy to support you in any way you would like. But I will be there to answer any questions.
Melissa, I just want to say that you've been put in the hot seat over this. Because you've been the project manager of this, it has looked from the sidelines as if people have sort of been, not holding you responsible for this, but putting you in the hot seat and making some demands and asking you to sort of justify why all this has happened. And I just would like to say clearly, the reason why this only costs as much as it does. It's because of the incredible amount of work that you put into trying to keep costs down, working with the consultant and the contractor, and all the work that you put into it. You know, the way to have saved money on this project, I hate to say it, was to have not kicked it down the can for 25 straight, kicked the can down the road for 25 straight years. You know, this dump has been known about since the purchase of the property way back when, and it's been known about by town government in all of the interceding years. It was troubling that there was a movement afoot to simply try to say no to the DEP and just just not do the work. That's not a good way to save money. Pushing this further down the road, even if we were able to, is also not a way to save money. This kind of works only gets more expensive as time goes by. Thank you for bearing this all with such grace and dignity, Melissa. And you know, the town should be very thankful for the work you put into it. It's been fantastic. And I hope you're treated kindly at town meeting. I will be there. I don't know that I would have anything to offer, you know, standing with you, but you will certainly have the moral support.
Thank you. Yes, no, it's definitely been an adventure, you know, doubling, you know, pretty much a 4.4 now million project, what I don't think was in anyone's minds, nor even our engineers, nor our consultants. So this truly was a little bit of a surprise, but you know, the more I've learned about asbestos is that not a lot of people want to take it anymore. So ironically, waiting even longer will be harder to find facilities that will take this, since we struggled as it is. So I'm hopeful we can get this finished. You know, the cleanup would take, I think we calculated 25 business days once it started, the actual excavation. So, you know, the actual work will be done in short order once we get all this completed, you know, and then restoration can happen, you know, making that plan, etc. So I think when all is said is done, hopefully this area becomes a nice addition to Breakneck, you know, in a way that's beneficial to the property and the habitat, etc. So we shall hope for an easy one. I'm hoping that's why they put us at the very end, you know, so all the others who may not agree have left by then. So we'll see. All right. So other than that, a 200 Turnpike, this is a salt shed in addition for a landscaping business. Just as you know, they've been kind of working off and on. They have a lot of their stormwater in, but they want to do their final paving. So they had some kind of non-compliance items with planning. So myself, the building commissioner, and the town planner went out last week and kind of went over those. Peter Bemis is also the engineer on that. So as of yesterday, he sent us kind of an interim as-built, mostly because they haven't had their construction phase inspections from Fuss and O'Neill that planning board requires. So trying to get that back on track and get them in a place where they can pave and better stabilize, which I would like from a stormwater perspective. So that is also in the works. They did have some, I think they were brine tanks, you know, that were pretty close to a catch basin. They had a hose. The owner had thought they were empty, but I could see there was clearly liquid in them. So they have been pumped. I did allow him to keep them on the property when they are actually empty, but moved away from any catch basin or stormwater system. So they're more in a higher, drier place that won't cause any unwanted illicit discharges. So that's kind of the real main active sites in town. And then otherwise, I did see that at the corner of where Laney Insurance is at 1 Boston East Main, they've kind of regraded an area that is for parking. And I'm just going to share this real quick just to show what I'm talking about. So this is Laney Insurance. So this area, which they must have used for a turnaround, you can kind of see, this is just a street view. But they've kind of regraded this and smoothed it out, and I saw some cars parked in there. There is kind of this stream channel that runs through here. You know, I think it might go underground afterwards, you know, but that work is essentially right here. So I wanted to send them a letter, request that they come to our next meeting. I was also going to do kind of a further inspection to make sure there wasn't any erosion. It kind of looked like they had pushed some soil a little bit along the side slope. So just wanted to check in on that. Unless you guys had any concerns or not wanting to send them, but I think it would be good practice to get them in for the next meeting. And then the only other thing is right before this meeting, the building commissioner actually sent me an email that they had done some tree cutting at 15 General Henry Knox. This is when I looked it up quickly, it's a Bartolini owned property. So I emailed Jack Bartolini quick, and he said that the trees that were cut down were for safety reasons only. No further cutting is necessary. But that even still usually requires an administrative approval by me. So I didn't know what steps you wanted me to take in terms of that. I can definitely probably go out and see what was cut specifically. I think a neighbor had called it in, but kind of wanted to keep that on your radar as that might come back for the next meeting.
Oh, this is that funny fake house.
A fake house?
It's it looks like a house, but it's not like a house with a family living in it. It's got a big garage door and like equipment gets stored in there. Is this that property? I think it is.
I don't think so. I don't know.
There's one on Henry Knox. There's one on John Matthews also.
Oh, so maybe it is then.
Anyhow, I just as an aside, it doesn't have any effect on. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. I didn't realize that the Bartolinis owned it. Doesn't have any effect on looking into this. I just, as an aside, I thought it was interesting.
Okay. Liz, did you have something? Sorry.
I was just wondering what the address was, but he said the street.
15, yeah. I think you're right, Ben. Yeah, so I guess especially if it's a garage, then that makes it a little more interesting. Okay, so I should
say, I'm assuming it's a garage. It sort of looks like one. You can sort of see through the windows, like when I'm running up the road. It looks like a big empty space inside. It's funny, like at first glance, it looks like a house, but I don't know, it looks like it's used for storage.
Fancy. Okay. Well, I'll talk to Jack tomorrow. He's usually up at the Dolmens anyway, so I'm sure he'll pop down afterwards. And see where we can go from there, see how many trees were cut, or if it was just kind of some trimming, is exempt, but cutting, even for safety, has to go through some process. But other than that, we already agreed Monday the 29th. I mean, sorry, oh my gosh, Monday the 23rd at 7:15 for the Chestnut Hill Farm discussion. So I'll send that out to the commission, the trustees, and open space as well. Did you want me to forward the invitation to the select board as we kind of discussed, or any other boards who have expressed interest? Or just kind of leave it?
Sorry, just fixing my calendar entry here for our meeting. Maybe just just a notice that we will be meeting to discuss it.
Okay. Yeah, not necessarily an invitation to participate, but
yeah, but just to keep them
of interest.
Yeah, keep them up to date.
Okay, perfect. I think that's all I have.
Okay. So with that, would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn?
My favorite of the night. So moved. It's been 2.5 hours.
I know. So you hold the new world's record. I'm sorry
This is not the longest meeting back. This is probably the biggest differential from short to long.
Kevin, second. Thank you.
Zulik?
Yes.
Barrington?
Yes.
Yes. Sorry about the length, everybody. I tried. There's just so much going on here tonight.
I think this one is long because Melissa pushed everything out of Liz's meeting into this one. That's why.
Yeah. That's what it is.
Come on, thump. Throw me under the bus.
Oh boy. Well, have a good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.